Chapter 3: 5 Lies That Ruin Lives. The bottom line is this: your life hasn't been going well because your relationship with your wife or girlfriend is rocky. Perhaps you're not in a relationship at all because you've been abusive in the past. Even the successes in your life seem threatened by your relationship problems. Your coworkers like you and your boss praises your job performance. But sometimes you feel that life at work will spin out of control if you have one more argument at home. You and your wife or girlfriend disagree about almost anything. You're often angry and frustrated. She talks about breaking up. You've threatened her and maybe pushed or shaken her. Perhaps the two of you have already split up, or you've been arrested for domestic violence. But you're a bright and practical guy. You understand how computers and cars work, or at least enough to make them work for you. You're perceptive. You know when to ask for a raise, and you can solve problems with coworkers. But this problem, the biggest problem in your life, your relationship, you haven't solved. And there's a good chance that, in spite of all you know, in spite of the fact that you're a sound thinker and make good decisions, you don't think very clearly about your relationship with the woman in your life. Your thinking may be so distorted that you've made some poor choices. You may have decided to yell at her because you think she deserves it. Or you may believe that you can have an affair and no one will get hurt. Later, you may have realized that your actions didn't get the results you wanted, but you've fallen into the same trap of distorted thinking time and again. We're going to tell you an important truth here, a truth that you need to fully understand if you want to improve your life. When you engage in distorting thinking, you are lying to yourself. Worse, often you don't recognize the lie. Distorted thinking allows you to believe one of the most basic lies that we tell ourselves, that the world should be a certain way, and you make misguided choices as a result of trying to make the world fit that lie. Consider a simple example. The driver who believes he has the right to drive on the freeway without being cut off by other drivers believes a lie. He may not be aware of this lie slash belief, but you can tell by his behavior that he lives by it. If you try to move into the outside lane before you reach your exit, he will speed up and block you. If you need to merge because construction has reduced 2 lanes to one, he will not let you in. His thinking is distorted by his belief in the lie that the world should be a certain way. In this case, he believes the lie that you don't have the right to get into his lane if he is inconvenienced for a nanosecond. His behavior behind the wheel is the result of his distorted thinking. When you believe that the world should be a certain way, when it's only a short step to believing that the woman in your life should behave in certain ways. When she doesn't behave the way you want her to, distorted thinking inevitably leads to the conclusion that she is to blame for the trouble in your relationship and your life. For abusive men, the lie that the world should conform to their wishes usually takes 5 forms. You may not have told yourself all 5 lies, but any one of them can lead you to destructive or abusive behavior that can only harm yourself and the woman you love. The lies are about issues of change and control in your relationship. As you read this chapter, think about how often you find one of these lies spiraling through your mind, pulling you toward abuse and violence. We believe that you can deconstruct the lies, pull them apart, and become aware of them so that you do not tell them to yourself. When you can see the lie, then seeing the truth will be much easier, and you can learn to avoid the damage that living the lie creates. Lie number 1: I can still live like a single man. Most of you had pretty good lives before you met your partners. You hunted and fished with your buddies, spent every spare minute on the golf course, got the latest computer equipment, and flirted with every other woman you saw. It was fun. It was simple. There were a lot of rewards and perks to the single life, and you took advantage of them. Then you met the woman who, perhaps too soon, became the mother of your children. She wanted shared household responsibilities, family time, and a van. You wanted to keep living the single life you enjoyed before you married, spending your time and money on golf, hunting, the latest computer gadgets. Eventually, the disagreements between you and your wife caused tremors, maybe even a small earthquake. She wanted you to go to her mother's for dinner every Sunday. You wanted to play golf. She said, "The kids need new school clothes." You said, "I need a new scanner." The truth? You are no longer single. You cannot be in a committed relationship and continue to live like a single man. Your wife and family need and deserve some of your time. Bringing home a paycheck is not enough to meet their needs. Giving your family your time and attention doesn't mean you never get to play golf, but it does mean you may not be able to tee off every Sunday afternoon. Mitch had agreed to a family picnic for Memorial Day. His two sons knew that their dad sometimes made promises to his family that he didn't keep, but they were excited because Mitch had said they could each bring a friend, which was unusual. The boys were certain that their dad wouldn't cancel the two guests invited. That morning, thinking of the noise and confusion and inevitable spats among the four boys, Mitch decided he'd rather spend the day working on his vintage Corvette. After breakfast, he started an argument with Rose, his wife, accusing her of talking too much on the phone. When Rose defended herself, he accused her of being emotional and said he didn't want to spend the day with someone who got upset so easy. Mitch got what he wanted. He put a new exhaust system on his car. He also further damaged his relationship with his wife and sons, who knew he had broken his promise to go to the picnic. Ask yourself, am I living the lie that I am a single man? Or do I willingly give my time and attention to make my relationship work? Lie number two, if she would change, then everything would be better. When something goes wrong, too often we want to blame someone else. Picture Randy and Charlie giving one of their workshops on men's issues. In an elegant hotel conference room with glittering chandeliers and thick sculptured carpet, in front of 100 other therapists, Charlie discovers the PowerPoint slides are out of order. He automatically blames Randy. If he didn't always wait until the last minute, then we'd have time to check these things, Charlie grumbles to himself, feeling anger well up inside him. The truth? Charlie had volunteered to check the slides, but in the midst of his embarrassment at the mistake, he overlooks this truth. Similarly, when things aren't going well in your relationship, you may blame your partner and want her to change. Maybe you want her to stop nagging, to let you off the hook when you promise to go home for dinner at 7 and you show up at after 9, or to forget that you forgot the wedding anniversary. Everything would be better if only she'd change. Charlie's client, Paul. Paul was angry. He had been in counseling for a year, and on this day he walked right past me, dispensing with his usual chat about the Pistons, and launched into an attack on his wife, Heather, before he'd even sat down. She doesn't want to have sex anymore. She won't go to Florida for our annual convention. She doesn't even greet me at the door. He paused, flushed, and I seized on the last of his accusations. She doesn't even say hello? No, she just keeps on reading the paper or cooking or whatever the hell she's doing. And that's not how you'd like her to behave? Paul was still steamed. Well, no, damn it. And I let her know it. I told her that if she couldn't at least get up and say hello to the man who's providing her with a house with a pool and a new Grand Am, she could find somebody else to do it. And how'd she react? I asked. Paul rolled his eyes and shrugged helplessly. She started crying and went to the bathroom. So you come home from work, you're tired, and you'd like some attention. Well, he slows down a bit. I don't think it's attention. I'd just like. I interrupt him. I think you'd like some attention. You want her to tell you she's glad to see you. You want her to make a fuss over you. You make me sound like a kid. His voice trails off, and I can tell he knows what I'm talking about. Paul's mother was an alcoholic. She started drinking at 10 in the morning, and by the time he got home from school, she was often passed out on the couch, an empty fifth of gin on the coffee table. Paul would turn off the TV, go into the kitchen, pour himself a glass of milk, and eat a handful of cookies. Often that was dinner. Paul and I had talked about his feelings of abandonment, and about how he brought those feelings into his relationship. He knew that he projected the hurt his mother caused him onto Heather, but he wasn't always aware when he did so. We talked for a while about how seeing Heather's actions through the filter of his mother's behavior distorted his perception of what was really going on. When Paul had calmed down, he said, "You know, Heather does always give me a hug, and I know I'm lucky because she always does want to make love. It's just that sometimes it's not soon enough. I get upset so fast, and the bad thing is that I accuse her of being cold and uncaring, and she isn't." He stared at the floor. "But you still want her to change?" I tell him. "You want her to jump up the second you walk in the door and hold you and kiss you. But if you calm yourself down, you can remember that you're really upset about something that happened years ago when your mother wasn't there, day after day, to greet you." Paul looked up at me. It's really about me, isn't it?" "Yes," I said. The truth that Paul was learning is that a man's desire to change his partner's behavior reflects his need far more than her behavior. Paul would like Heather to change, and she could. She could greet him every day after work with a hug and plans for a romantic evening, but Paul, given his abandonment issues, would probably never feel really truly loved. Heather could dote on him constantly, but inevitably she'd neglect to do something. She'd forget to ask about his day or give him a kiss on the way out the door, and all the pain he felt as a boy would flood over him again. Paul needed to stay in counseling until he changed himself, until he learned to calm and soothe himself and convince himself that Heather's occasional small omissions weren't a sign that she didn't love him. Some of us don't have the deep seated issues that troubled Paul, but we do have plenty of problems: impatience, boredom, anger, depression, anxiety, and it's easy to want our partners to change to make our problems go away. If she were just different, we think, we'd stop getting so angry and we wouldn't argue so much. The truth? You cannot change other people. No one likes being forced to change her behavior. Your partner will resist. She will fight back because she finds your attempts invasive and controlling. If you persist in believing the lie that she should change, you will grow increasingly angry and frustrated when she persists in her usual behavior. Your anger, frustration, and the mistaken belief that she alone is responsible for the problems in your life can too easily lead to domestic abuse. Ask yourself, do I live by the lie that if my partner would change, then I wouldn't be angry and abusive, and therefore my life would be smoother? Or am I willing to change my own behavior and ways of looking at the world? Lie number 3: I have a right to control her. If you believe the lie that changing her will improve your life and she resists your suggestions or threats that she should change, then your distorted thinking can lead to the next logical lie: I have a right to control her and make her do what I want. Just as your partner will almost always oppose your efforts to make her change, she will resist your attempts to control her. The outcome of controlling behavior can be devastating for both partners, as Stephen's story below shows. Randy's client, Stephen. Stephen was a cop in the Vice Squad. Underneath the tough guy image that he showed to drug runners as well as other cops, he was a deeply insecure man. He'd met Linda, his pretty and outgoing wife, at a busy lunch counter. Linda smiled and made small talk as they waited in line, and by the time they finished lunch, he had asked her out. Although it was clear to both of their families that Linda loved Stephen and never thought of straying, he worried about her having an affair and was jealous when he saw her talking with other men. He wanted to know where she was and when she would be home. Linda worked as a medical transcriptionist in the suburb where they lived, and she liked to stop by a coffee shop on her way home. She got off work around 5, and 2 or 3 nights a week she'd have a latte with her coworkers. When Stephen arrived home first, he'd worry about why she wasn't there. She was almost always home by 6:30, but for Stephen, the time alone in the empty apartment seemed like a long, long time. He imagined her smiling at guys that came onto her, always remembering how he had met her and how she had responded to him. Stephen never understood that Linda's friendly, extroverted personality didn't mean that she would cheat on him. Stephen repeatedly asked her to come home straight from work. One night, when Linda didn't come home until 7, he sat at the kitchen table drinking beer. He knew, or he grew more and more angry as he sat there, convinced she was having an affair. When he heard her key in the door, he met her at the door, grabbed her by the arms, and roughly pulled her inside. He demanded the keys to her car and said that she wasn't allowed to go out any more after work. When Linda tried to get away from him, Stephen pushed her hard against the wall. Her elbow was bruised so badly she couldn't straighten her arm for a week. Stephen was remorseful. He'd never meant to hurt her, but at the same time, he believed that he did what he needed to do. He let her know that it would be best for her if she was home when he wanted her to be. Over the next few weeks, Stephen and Linda made up, and he breathed a sigh of relief. One day, a month later, Stephen came home to find Linda and all her things gone. Nothing of her remained. He emailed her email and files had been erased from the computer. The memory in the phone had been wiped clean. Stephen tried to call Linda's sister and her best friend, but the numbers had been changed. The information said their new numbers were unlisted. The next day, Stephen was served with a personal protection order that forbade him to call Linda at work or be within 100 yards of her. On the surface, it may seem that if you lose control, something you've got, it's your possession. It's yours to keep. The truth, ultimately, you will lose what you try to control. Maybe you meet a woman and right away she recognizes your attempt to make all the decisions and she never calls you back. Maybe you've told your wife what to do and not do for the past 20 years. One day you have an argument and she tells you she's getting a divorce. The principle is simple: what you control, you lose. Even if your wife or girlfriend doesn't walk out as Linda did, your push to control her will cause her to suffer a loss of spontaneity, joy, and love for you. When her life is diminished by your controlling behavior, you lose too. Ask yourself, do I practice the lie that I have a right to control my partner? Or do I accept her as a person, not as a possession, and understand that I do not have the right to threaten her or force her to change for my satisfaction? Lie number 4. If I treat her as an equal, then I'll no longer be in control of my life. It worked out for a while. You called the shots, and your girlfriend or wife went along. Like your father, you were the head of the household, and you made all the decisions. Maybe you didn't like her spending so much time on church projects. You told her to stop, and she did. You told her that you didn't like her hair, and she went blonde. The kids were noisy and messy, and you hate noise and disorder, so you told her to punish the kids, and she reluctantly agreed. For a while, you were in control. When you didn't like something, she changed. For 6 months or 6 years, you got what you wanted, and you stayed in control. Then something happened. She met a woman who encouraged her to stand up for herself, or she just got fed up with deferring to you. She decided that she had some rights too, and the arguing started. She said she wanted you to be home more in the evenings, to spend more time with the kids, to clean the house yourself if you didn't like how she did it. She said this was the 21st century and she didn't intend to be your maid anymore. You were angry. You were probably shocked, too, because things seemed to be going smoothly and you were unprepared for what seemed like a sudden rebellion. You made a lot more money than she did, and you thought it made sense for her to do a little more around the house. She said it wasn't a little more and that you needed to grow up or get some counseling. You felt that if you gave in to her demands, you wouldn't be a man. Your mother had done everything around the house. Your dad sat in his lounge chair and watched the Yankees while she cooked, cleaned, washed dishes, did the laundry, took care of you and your siblings, and attended to all the details of running the household. You believe that this arrangement worked for your parents and that it should work for you. Your wife's refusal to go along with you made you feel disrespected. But in an effort to keep the peace, you gave in and did the laundry occasionally, spent more time with the kids, and even took her out to dinner. but you resented your new duties, and she resented the fact that you didn't do enough. One day, she said, "This isn't working." You replied, "You're right," already planning to find a woman who would give you the respect you thought you deserved, turning your marriage into a win-lose battlefield in the inevitable effect is the inevitable effect of the lie that says equality in a relationship will cause you to lose control. If you believe the lie, then your encounters with the woman in your life will frequently be tense. The lie sets up a false win lose scenario. Either she wins or I do. Either she's in control or I am. But an intimate relationship doesn't have winners and losers. The desire to be in control at all times erodes the quality of our lives with our partners. Ask yourself, do I believe the lie that treating my partner as an equal in our relationship will result in a loss of control and respect? Or do I understand that by treating my partner as my equal and avoiding controlling or overbearing behavior, I will increase my chances of earning her love and respect? Lie number 5. I just can't help myself. When men enter our domestic abuse groups, they often say that they didn't mean to hurt her. They just drank too much, or they were angry, or she'd been nagging them all day long, or she started it by hitting them first. Essentially, they argue that they are not to blame for hurting her because they didn't mean to, and they couldn't stop themselves. Many of the men are angry and resentful at being forced to participate in domestic abuse treatment programs when they believe that they did not consciously intend to injure their partners. Charlie's client, Jerry. Jerry didn't just resent attending the program, he was enraged. A construction worker who was used to yelling, Jerry told us in a very loud voice that they were arguing because Monica had wanted to take his truck to work and she had hit him first, and she was the one who should have been arrested. In fact, he said, she had punched him 3 times in the face. He had hit her back once, he now he was the one who had to come to this damn group. He always thought that Ottawa County had the worst courts in Michigan, and now he was sure of it. Some of the other newer group members nodded in agreement. I looked around the room. Vince was now in his 23rd week of the 26-week program. I could tell he had something to say. He looked over at Jerry and asked him, Jerry, how much do you weigh? It was clear to every man in the room that Jerry weighed well over 200 pounds. He answered, about 250. And how much does Monica weigh? Vince asked. Oh, she's pretty skinny, Jerry answered. What do you figure she weighs? I asked. Maybe 110. I couldn't help but ask, does she work out? Nah, Jerry answered. She's into that yoga stuff. So, I went on, I'll bet you've got 10 times the muscle mass that she has. Yeah, I guess so. The heads that had been nodding in support of Jerry were now still. Bruce was new to the group, but was catching on fast. Did you get hurt? I mean, did she injure you? He asked. No, Jerry said. Bruce persisted. How about her? She had a broken nose. Jerry wouldn't see it, but everyone else in the room could. He hit Monica to let her know that she'd better not hit him. She had crossed a boundary. She had become too aggressive for his taste. Nobody lays hands on me. In spite of the fact that he could hardly feel her punches, he broke her nose to let her know who was in charge and that he was going to make the decisions. 3 months passed before he acknowledged that maybe he had a choice about using aggressive physical force against his wife. When we talk in group about Jerry's story, we first remind the guys that they are responsible for their behavior, no matter what their partner does. Even if a man is in actual physical danger, he still has defensive choices other than pushing, punching, grabbing, or choking her. Ed's story clearly illustrates the I had no choice lie. Randy's client, Ed. During Ed's intake assessment, he explained that he was arrested for domestic violence because he had a bad temper. I just blow my cork sometimes, Ed said. He seemed to think his temper accounted for all his troubles. How often do you blow your cork at work? I asked. Ed responded indignantly, I don't blow up at work. He paused and then added, I used to yell at my coworkers and even my boss once in a while, but I stopped. Why don't you yell at work anymore? It almost got me fired, Ed muttered. Despite his claim that he was arrested because he couldn't manage his temper, Ed could indeed control when and he would blow his cork. If he was truly were unable to control himself, eventually he would have been fired. But the serious warnings he received at work were enough to make him cool down. Ed was able to manage his behavior at work because he knew he would be held accountable. Unfortunately for his wife, Ed did not feel compelled to control his temper at home. What we do with our loved ones when no one is looking says a lot about our character. Ask yourself, have I ever justified abusing physically abusing my partner with the lie that I just couldn't help myself and that I just made a mistake when I hurt her? Or do I accept that domestic abuse is a choice and I can control and a choice that I can control and that it's never just a mistake? One unavoidable truth. There's only one person who can change, and that person is you. If you want to improve your life and relationship and enjoy more love and less strife, you need to concentrate on changing yourself, not her. All the lies are about two fundamental aspects of human relationships: change and control. Like any lie involving human behavior, they are backward, twisted, and upside down. No wonder we have trouble with our relationships. Many men have lived with the burden of these lies for years, but you can change these beliefs. You can ask yourself the hard questions listed above. And by thinking about your behavior, you can slowly become aware of how the lies have distorted your thinking and your life. On the surface, the fact that you're the one who has to do the difficult work of changing can seem like bad news. You may fear the losses that sometimes come with change. You may not like to admit, even to yourself, that recognizing the need for change means admitting that you aren't perfect. But think about it for a minute. Really think about it, because this is a fundamental point. If she's the one who has to change for your life to improve, then who's in charge? She is. If she decides to change to meet your expectations, great. If she doesn't, you'll be trapped in the same arguments and angers and frustrations. If she has to change for your life to improve, then you're pretty much at her mercy. If, on the other hand, you're the one who chooses to change, then you can improve your life no matter what she does. This is good news. It's empowering. Once Paul recognized that he didn't need to be caught by childhood pain and disappointment, he felt better because he knew he could think and feel and act differently. He was no longer so dependent on Heather because he didn't need her to be perfect. This book is about change. It won't be of much value if you read it from cover to cover and nothing different happens in your life. If you read this book looking for ways to change your partner so you don't get angry and abusive anymore, then you will miss the point. We hope you are reading with the idea that you can change some of your beliefs and behaviors. The biggest change you need to make is to forsake emotional and physical abuse. But you also need to change who you are in the relationship. You probably want the best for yourself and your wife and family. Now is the time to start acting like it. So, what do you do next? One, understand and accept that domestic abuse is a choice. It's a time when you can be in control, not of her or the relationship, but how you behave. Domestic abuse is a choice. Reject it. Two, take responsibility for your actions and beliefs. Reject the urge to blame others. Your partner isn't responsible for what you do. As a man who is capable of doing great harm to others, you need to be aware of and manage what you think, feel, say, and do. Do not be surprised if your partner doesn't immediately welcome and accept your changed behavior. Relationships don't start fresh every day, they have a history. Not only do men need to take responsibility for their behavior in a particular incident, they also need to be accountable for how past abuse has affected their partner's behavior today. 3. Do the next right thing. You probably know that Alcoholics Anonymous meetings are full of sayings such as one day at a time. One of the more recent slogans is, we just need to do the next right thing. If you choose to do the next right thing for yourself and the woman you love, and you are certain that you are making a moral choice, then you will be the man you want to be. Try it. Loosen your grip. Let go of your need to control and do the next right thing. A new world will open up for you.